Hello and welcome to the Big Travel Podcast, on which we explore life stories through travel. I'm Lisa Francesca Nand. Life's not always been full of laughs for comedian Phil Nichol. For a start, he was born in Britain's number 2 crack town, was banned by his born-again Christian parents from wearing jeans until age 17, and once had a terrifying encounter with wild dogs whilst searching for a Nazi-themed socialist folk music bar in the dark night in the countryside outside Bangkok. And don't even ask about Trough Man. It's best that I let him tell you the gory details himself. Please welcome crazy Scottish by way of Canada, comedian Phil Nichol. You're a lot calmer in person than I imagined you'd be, because I've seen your stage shows and you're off your rocker.
It's as much of a character as Stewart Lee says he's a character, which it is. If you know Stewart, it's not as far a cast of a character, but he's actually really gentle and quite, he's not, he obviously is a bit sarcastic, but he's not as full on, but neither could he be.
So tell me, what is your stage persona?
I've got 2 different settings. One is for club comedy, the Comedy Store, the Glee clubs, the stand comedy clubs. It's full-on, frenetic, loudmouth, bit sweary, do anything for a laugh, like to climb into the audience, play the guitar. For the tour that I'm doing and for my sort of Edinburgh Festival style show, which are longer form shows, it still is frenetic and crazy, but it's less sweary, more thoughtful and a bit more philosophical.
You're on a large tour at the moment. Tell me where you're going.
The tour has started already and it's taken me all over Britain. I've got 35 dates at the present, and it's taking me to Canterbury, Aberdeen, and then to Brighton, I think, and everything in between is probably the best way to describe it.
Which is your favourite place? When you mentioned Brighton, my heart lit up, because I'm a Brightonian currently in exile in London, and I love going back to Brighton. But where's your best audience, do you think, across the UK?
Brighton is certainly up there. I'm a left-leaning person, but I'm not a soft left-leaning person. So
you're a hard left-leaning
person.
Well,
I'm quite contentious in a lot of ways. I don't go with everything, but Brighton certainly is one of the more open-minded groups. But I do like playing this in Newcastle, and Aberdeen. The Aberdeen Comedy Festival, which I've done before, should be electric, because it's the second year of it, and it was really successful last year. And Aberdonians are crazy.
Is that what they're called? Aberdonians? Are you making that up?
Aberdonians.
Aberdonians?
Are you from Aberdeen?
Well, you're Scottish, aren't you? Even though you sound like you're Canadian, because you were brought up in Canada. Tell me about what's the history?
I was born in a place called Cumbernauld, which is a really sort of nasty... I don't want to say, if you're from Cumbernauld, I love you, but I was born in Cumbernauld.
You're all a bunch of nasty bastards.
No, it's not. There's a book called Crap Towns that comes out every year. It lists the crap towns, and Cumbernauld is always number 2. Never wins. But Cumbernauld...
can't even win that, can
it? Cumbernauld is not a place to travel to. It's the end of the line of a very short line from Glasgow. The council of Cumbernauld actually wrote to Channel 4. Channel 4 were doing a TV show where they tear down a landmark in your city, like a garish landmark. And the city council of Cumbernauld asked them to tear down Cumbernauld and rebuild it. And that's not a joke. That actually happened. They wrote into the whole people, everyone voted and went, can we just tear it down and start again?
Why? Is it like 1960s? Is it all a 1960s sort of mess?
It's a new town. It was designed by an Italian designer. I can't, his name slipped my mind right now, but at the time they were designing these new towns, there's lots of cul-de-sacs and lots of little twisty-turny roads. They try and turn it into a country feel. I mean, I went back on my 50th birthday, and it was fantastic fun to go. I mean, I'm sure there are lovely bits of it, but even people in Cumbernauld make fun of Cumbernauld.
So it hasn't been gentrified in any way?
I can't imagine it being gentrified in any way. Although they do have a lovely little theatre there. And the house that my father actually built the house that I moved into. He was trying to have it done by the time I was born, but I was 6 weeks old when I moved into the house my father built. And my father is a cabinet maker and a builder and a working class man by trade from Clydebank. And he saved up all his money and built this house, and he couldn't afford to put the roof on it.
Which is not good with a 6-week-old baby, by the way.
Not at all.
No
and his mother, he went to his mother to ask her for the money. She wouldn't give it to him. So he had to work even harder to get the money to put the roof on.
Would she have had the money?
Maybe.
Why did she not give it to him?
I don't know. I think she just wanted him to work harder.
I tell you what, not having a roof is a good incentive to work harder.
Sure. So my father was a builder, a cabinet maker by trade, and he built this beautiful wall inside that's hard wood that he was gifted from one of the men at the church that he used to go to. So it's a bungalow. The entire wall is this hardwood panelled wall with a door that you can't quite see. Like, it's got one of those doors that opens that you got a little key, like a little lock in it.
Secret door.
Yeah, a little secret door, and it separated the bedrooms from the house to the common room of the house.
Wow.
And when I went back, I was taking a photo of it, and there was a guy washing his car out front. He went, "Hey, what are you up to?" And I was like, "My dad built this house." He went, "What?" And I said, "My dad built this house." He went, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah, it was 1965, just before I was born." And he went, "Oh, come on inside for a cup of tea." And he took me inside, and he said, "Oh, we've redone the whole thing. It's all got all new, kitchen, and all new bedrooms are all been redone. But this wall," and he had the wall there.
Wow.
And the wall that my father had built from hand, and built it from scratch, from hand. Beautiful, dark wood, panelled, like hard wood, and it was gorgeous. And he said, "Oh, this will never go. This is the reason we bought the house." Actually, my father bought the house and he sold it to me. And so I got a picture of taken in front of the wall.
The wall, the big Nichol family wall. But that sounds like something out of a James Bond film almost, in Cumbernauld in the 1960s.
Yeah.
To have this amazing
Yeah.
wooden wall with a secret.
The way I told my father about it, it must have been a lot to him. He built the wall, I think, before he probably built the roof.
Can afford the wall, we can't afford the roof. So how did the family get apart from fly, I'm assuming, or maybe they went on the boat from Scotland to Canada? What took you there and how was it?
Well, actually, my father told me the story because my dad, my mum's going to be 90 next year. My dad is 87, still going, and all their faculties there. My dad was telling me the first time he went to Canada, he had to take a boat, and he was in the lower classes, like third class, and it took him months to get there, and he worked as a cabinet maker on the government buildings because they were trying to get young Scottish guys. So he went with his brother and a friend, I think, and they worked on these government buildings, and then he came back and met my mum. And then we flew out. By the time the 60s, I flew there. It was 1970 by the time we got there. So we all...
So you were 10 years old?
I was 5 years old. I was 5 years old. 4.5 years old. I was there for a whole year of kindergarten.
Did you remember any moving?
I remember little bits about it. I remember being in Canada and it being very strange. Because we were Scottish and we were working class. I was given my brother's sort of a hand-me-down school outfit. And I was really small for my age. So it was baggy. It hung off me and had sandals on and a little tie and a blazer. And I went to school my first day. In Canada, kids don't wear that stuff. They wear jeans and t-shirts, so I got picked on.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I skipped a grade because I went to kindergarten in Canada. We moved back to Scotland because my parents didn't really enjoy living. My mum didn't enjoy living in Canada for the first year. She missed her friends, missed her mum, missed all that stuff. So we moved back to Scotland, and I went to school for 2 years in Scotland. But because I'd already done kindergarten, I skipped a grade, and I was born in May, so I was already a year young for the people my age. So I was in this class. I was almost 2 years younger than everyone, up to everyone's elbow, with the Scottish accent. I had a stutter and a lisp. I had my Scottish school uniform on, and my parents were devout born-again Christians. So it's fair to say I got picked on all the time.
Oh no, bless you, that's heartbreaking. Well, I was going to say, as many comedians do, is there a dark past? This is your dark past. What keeps you going? The impetus to comedy.
Yeah, it's actually the basis of the show that I'm doing on tour, which is called You're Wrong, spelt Y-O-U-R, just to irritate the grammar Nazis. Talk about my life growing up and how it formed my sense of humour, because I'm quite aggressive and abrasive on stage, but actually I'm not off stage. I like Thai green curry and I cook at home, and I'm a big softie, really. I'm
quite intrigued about your parents sort of hopping around. They went back to Canada after a while. They were like, okay, we realised that we made a mistake coming home, we're going back.
Yeah. What happened was in the late 60s, 70s, the Canadian government were trying to get immigration happening, and they wanted people from Europe, and there was a lot of Portuguese and Greek and Italian builders going out to build houses, and they needed Brits, they needed Irishmen and Scotsmen and some Englishmen, but mainly Scotsmen and Irishmen, to go out because they could be supervisors. So they gave them supervisor positions because they needed people that could speak English fluently enough to talk to the housing people.
Why not the English? Can we not speak English fluently enough?
I don't know if I don't know if the English were actually builders like that, but as far as I could see, it was mainly Scots and Irish. Yeah,
I touched on this recently with Kirsty Walk. We've had a lot of Scottish people on. We've had Kirsty Walk, George Galloway, Edith Bowman, but Kirsty Walk was talking. She's written a novel which is inspired by people, 2 novels actually, heading to Canada and heading to America from Scotland, inspired by the Andy Goldsworthy sculptures, I think they are. We were talking about this. It's like what it must have been like, particularly like when your dad went on a boat, to be leaving behind your friends and family, going out into the unknown, taking a boat for months and not knowing what you were going to encounter. And
not knowing if you're ever going to come back. I think there's a lot of people left in those days to not come back. Didn't really say why he came back, but I know he was very close with his mother. His father passed when he was a teenager, so he went straight into a job as an apprentice joiner. and then went out there to try and create a new life for himself. But I think maybe his mother needed him to come home. But at the time, I think he told me, I don't know if this is true or in his imagination, but he said it was £4 to the dollar, Canadian dollar, at the time. So when he came home, the job that he had in Canada as a 20-year-old, when he came home, he had 4 times as much money as his mates who'd been working the whole time as joiners and cabinet makers in Scotland. And he said he had a scooter and all sorts of stuff that you wouldn't have had as a young man. So he's a bit of a show-off, my dad.
It's great when that happens, though, isn't it? It doesn't really happen to us anymore, but I remember going to Australia when we had 3 Australian dollars to the pound, and the States when we've got $2 to the pound, and now I don't even want to look at what it is. I know the euro is something.
No. Well, I went out to New Zealand the first time, and it was 5 Kiwi dollars to the pound. I remember being in South Africa. I travelled to South Africa to the Cape Town Comedy Festival, and it was 16 rand to the pound. It's now about 3 or 4.
So you've ended up here